The moment we start talking about rights of women, there are some persons who get extremely offended. They are very angry. They don't want to hear it. The assumption, the misconception is that it is a revolution against family values. Some believe that it's a revolution against cultural values, while to some they feel that it's a revolution against men or the tenets of society in general. They feel that it is anti-societal or family values. But that's an absolute misconception. Because those of us who advocate for the rights of women are basically saying that as humans, there are basic rights that we have all agreed that are attributed to human by virtue of being born. There are some rights, they call it fundamental rights, that are basic, and it has been agreed all over the world that every human being by virtue of their birth, irrespective of race, sex, circumstances of their birth, the basics that they will enjoy. The essence of these rights is to support your existence as a human being. That is to make it possible and convenient for you to thrive as a decent human being in any society where you find yourself. However, when it comes to women, some of these conversations can have a slightly different twist. For instance, if we talk about the right to life, all over the world it has been agreed that nobody has the right to take the life of another. Except there's an order of court. Even governments cannot arbitrarily take the life of its citizens. However, when it has to do with women, especially women of reproductive age, the issue of right to life can be a slightly different conversation. How do I mean? The maternal mortality rate, that is the deaths associated to childbirth, that is women of reproductive age through pregnancy and childbirth, can bring an entirely different twist to conversations around the right to life. For instance, Nigeria rates ridiculously high. We are the 4th highest in the world when it comes to issues associated with deaths in the course of childbirth. So when you hear people who advocate for the rights of women talk about the mortality rate, make a lot of noise, try to create awareness around issues that are hardly spoken about in public when it comes to death associated with childbirth, there's a serious need. In fact, it's an emergency. Government and people need to look into this and create a lot of awareness so that we can draw government's attention to the things that should be priority. Nigeria rates as the 4th highest on earth when it comes to death associated with childbirth. And stakeholders in the health sector have said that government need to put in more efforts with the primary health centers because women in the rural areas do not have access to health care. Even where the health centers are existent, you discover that they are not even fit for human use. I also like to talk about freedom from torture. All over the world, we have agreed that no human being should be subject to torture, in any form of torture, inhuman or degrading treatment, or any form of cruelty or punishment is abolished. And where such things occur, there are laws in Nigeria and all over the world, that criminalize such action. But when it comes to a woman, especially married woman in Nigeria, it becomes an entirely different conversation. That is, it becomes an entirely different conversation out of the regular. You discover that every woman that is married in Nigeria and most African countries, they are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. How do I mean? There are widowhood practices that nobody talks about. Some of our cultures and traditions have such barbaric, wicked, cruel, inhuman, and evil widowhood practices, and nobody is talking about them. Suddenly, a woman loses her husband. She's traumatized. She's grieving. She's confused. She is trying to figure out what is actually going on in this situation. But you discover that cultures and tradition practices We subject some of these women to all sorts of treatments that, in fact, you cannot imagine. Some cultures go as far as they wash the corpse of the man and force this woman to drink. In some cultures, the woman will be shaved, shave her hair, make her sit on the floor, bare floor, lock her up somewhere in isolation. Torture. Torture, mental torture, physical, emotional. She's abused. And what I find most intriguing is the fact that this woman is locked up inside. Family members, guests, and sympathizers are outside having a feast. In some places, everything that she has worked for, everything is taken away. And sometimes left to fend for these children with almost nothing to start with. These are some of the conversations that some of us, are trying to advocate. It is not a movement against family values. I know that there are a lot of misrepresentations out there. No doubt. There are a lot of misconceptions, a lot of noise, like everything that is good, it has its own issues. Some people can take it out of context. Probably because they may have good intentions, but probably because they are not equipped and they don't understand better. But when next you see somebody advocating for the rights of women, try to be patient to understand what the real issues are. There are critical issues because some of these fundamental rights, when it has to do with women, it has a slightly different twist to it. So people are not advocating for the rights of women because they are seeking for special privileges. We are saying no, that some of these rights, the enforcement of some of these rights should be all-inclusive and should also consider some of the peculiar challenges that affect women. What I find most disturbing with each of these issues affecting women, these gender-based issues, is that you find out that women are even enablers in some of this system. If you read through history, you will discover that at every point where women decided to come together and find their voice and challenge status quo, nothing could stop them. Nothing stood in their way. Change was inevitable. So it is 2025 and it's International Women's Day. And this is me using this medium to say that as women, let's come together and unite against these issues that plague us, that are peculiar to us. So when next you hear news of a girl being defiled in your neighborhood, you as women come together, we as women come together, 50, 10, 20, 30 of us, carry that child, confront the monster, go to the regulatory authorities, go to the government, go to the police. The police has a special desk for gender-based violence. Ensure that justice is done. Let's come together, team up, and begin to confront some of these wicked and barbaric customary practices that marginalize women and subject them to inhuman and degrading treatment. I can tell you, a girl that means business, nothing can stand in her way. We as women, we need to find our voice, set aside our prejudice, come together and march like an army. And I can assure you, nothing can stand in the way of women when they really, really mean business.